Okay, hi everyone. This is the Scarlet Letter. This is the How to Read Literature Like a Professor analysis of it. I am sick, so if my voice cracks or I sound really bad, I'm sorry. Let's get started. The first chapter I chose to do is that a symbol? It's chapter 12 in How to Read Lit Like a Professor. There are a billion symbols in the Scarlet Letter. You can take almost any object or person in the book, and it's a symbol for something. Um, I'm going to go through a couple of them, but I can only give you what these symbols mean to me. That's what makes them symbols, is that they mean something different to each reader. So obviously, my opinion is not necessarily what they mean exactly. The first is the Scarlet A. To the rest of her society, this is Hester Prynne's mistake. This is her shame that she has because of what she did. But by the end of the book, it almost becomes something to be proud of. She embroiders it, she makes it look really, really fancy. And when other people see it, it reminds them of all of the kind things she's done and how she's tried so hard to atone for her sins throughout most of the book. The next symbol is Pearl. Pearl also symbolizes the adulterous mistake that Hester made, this awful thing. And it really bothers the rest of society that she could be so beautiful. And uh, in my opinion, this is Nathaniel Hawthorne's way of saying that the Puritan society was too strict, and because Pearl is beautiful, they can't understand how she became this beautiful thing, even though she was born from adultery. That being said, she's also referred to as a devil child and evil and an elf, so um, I could be totally off. The next symbol I want to go through is the A in the sky that Dimmesdale saw when he was standing out in the scaffold in the middle of the night. This just shows his projected feelings and of all of his guilt, that he sees this A that probably wasn't really there. The scaffold itself also symbolizes the punishment, the uh, stern way of life in the Puritan society. Um, and it just symbolizes punishment. Like I said, though, there are many more symbols and meanings, and this is all just what they mean to me. Next chapter I did was It's All Political, chapter 13. So Nathaniel Hawthorne definitely had a political agenda when he was writing this. He talked a lot about the hypocrisy of society, how Dimmesdale is unpunished for the whole book. Um, he feels really guilty because he also participated in the sex with Hester. um, but society doesn't know that, and therefore he keeps condemning Hester and he keeps preaching, and he's just this huge hypocrite. And then, even when he does tell the rest of society that he had sex with Hester, they take it completely differently. Instead of slapping an A on his chest and shaming him, they say, "Oh my gosh, look at this priest. He's so holy. Even he sins." And it just shows how forgiving God is. And whereas with Hester, they shame her for years and years. And even though they like her and they know how kind she is, they still shame her. The book is also littered with anti-Puritan sentiments. I have some quotes such as "stern and black-browed, bitter persecutors, dismal severity, and the most intolerant brood that ever lived." So clearly, Nathaniel Hawthorne did not like Puritans and believed that in the 1800s, when he lived, society was much better than in the past when it was ruled by Puritans. The next chapter I did is Marked for Greatness, chapter 21. This one has to do with physical markings. So Dimmesdale carved the letter A into his chest. It's a physical manifestation of his feelings. It's his atonement for his sins. Um, but it actually made his death come more quickly in the end because his body had to waste energy trying to recover from this A that he was carving into himself than if he had just not done that and um, just told people right up front what was going on. He probably would not have died in the novel. The next one is kind of related to that. It's never just heart disease and rarely just illness. This is chapter 23. So we're going to talk about Dimmesdale again. For most of the book, he's dying. He befriends Chillingworth because Chillingworth offers him cures for his illnesses. But obviously, Chillingsworth is not actually looking out for Dimmesdale and can't offer him any sort of cure because the illness that Dimmesdale faces is because of his guilt and his dishonesty with the people in the Puritan society. He has a lot of heart issues, which is directly related to Hester. It shows it's like a manifestation of his heartbreak because he loves Hester, but he cannot be with her and he can't live with what his heart really wants. And then just the guilt again that he was feeling over his dishonesty is really what kills him in the end. Chillingsworth also dies. His is more of a death because of the absence of what was keeping him alive, which is his revenge against Hester and against Dimmesdale. When that revenge is no longer there, his spirit and his will to live die, and therefore his body does as well within a year of Dimmesdale's death. The final chapter I'm going to go into is Don't Read with Your Eyes. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you read it that way, but if you say don't read with your eyes, then it starts to make more sense. This is chapter 24. This has to do with getting into the time period of what you're reading. And in the Scarlet Letter, it's really interesting because there are two time periods we need to consider. There's the Custom House, Nathaniel Hawthorne's time frame in the 1850s. And then there's 17th century New England. So it's really interesting that we get a whole 50-some pages of Nathaniel Hawthorne's life before we even get into the novel. In order to understand Hawthorne and what he thinks, you have to understand the 1800s and what their views were. But then in the actual novel, you have to understand 17th century New England, where witches and superstition rule and there are hard lines in society and the church is the most important thing. And this novel in particular would not make much or any sense without some historical background, because without it you would just think that these people in the society are crazy, but that's just how they lived back then. Okay, Hester Prynne, I just want to go through the characterization of her. She is a strong, independent woman. She's determined to continue her life and to make a life for Pearl despite her previous actions and her previous mistakes. She lives through her actions and her characters revealed through her actions, her atonement and her how she treats other people. Throughout the book, you can see a development of her confidence, and she refuses to be defined by her past mistakes. She instead moves forward. She gets the whole town to like her, which is a crazy thought at the beginning of the book when she is so ostracized. And so, yeah, thanks for listening, even though you didn't have a choice. If you have any questions, find me in class because you can't ask me right now. But yep, thanks. Bye.